Unreal. No, seriously. For Epic Games, it all started with Unreal. Unreal originally launched back in 1998 as a single-player focused shooter series, and would then quickly take the world by storm, impressing all with its graphics, gameplay, and the personality within. Epic Games launched the Unreal Tournament, a multiplayer focused title based in the Unreal world in 1999, just 1 year later. Unreal Tournament would have multiple iterations spanning over a decade, helping alongside Quake put arena shooters on the map. When something was called an Unreal or Quake-like game, it was synonymous with arena shooter. But although Unreal Tournament would quiet down tremendously following 2007, the launch of their last game, through the success of the engine dubbed for the game the Unreal Engine and inspirations from Unreal Tournament, Unreal's legacy is still felt today. Epic would unveil a desire to bring back Unreal Tournament in the form of the fourth Unreal Tournament game, announced back in 2014. Through a combination of little updates, little news brought forth, and now essentially radio silence following an exclamation of ending development, Unreal Tournament 4 would never come to fruition. That's the mystery we are hoping to solve in this episode, while at the same time trying to tell the story of Unreal Tournament post its heyday, the part that most people are familiar with. In this special episode of Death of a Game, we will talk about not just Unreal Tournament 4 failing and the largest contributing factors to such, we will also talk about the franchise as a whole and Epic's handling of it. Stay tuned along the way for the clues and evidence as it presents itself, for at the end of the episode we have a final deduction where we solve the case. Without further ado, let's talk about shooter royalty. I'd like to thank Hyperfever for sponsoring this video. There's truly no game like Hyperfever, as you can tell from the gameplay on screen. And no, you might be thinking, this looks too good to be true. Okay, well it is too good to be true. That's because this video is actually sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Finally, Raid Shadow Legends has found its way to sponsoring one of the videos on this channel. Now, if you don't know about Raid Shadow Legends, which I find pretty hard to believe, it's completely free to play, it's a casual game that attracts players of all types, it has millions of players with over 80 million downloads, it has really good PC quality graphics on mobile, over 650 completely unique champions to collect from, billions of ways to customize and build your champions, and endless content and updates every single month. If you want the best weekly rewards, make sure to join a clan and fight the clan boss. And the fastest way to level up your champions is through the campaign. You can grind XP and get loads of silver at the same time. This April, Raid is going on an egg hunt, but they're not hunting for normal eggs. They're hunting for dragon eggs. Just download Raid Shadow Legends using the links below and the links in the description, copy your endgame player ID, and then head over to egghunt.plarium.com from April 14th to May 15th. Enter your player ID and then journey through the flaming portal to embark on an exciting AR adventure. Scour the dragon's lair using your phone, and if you find the hidden egg, you'll be in for a chance to win amazing in-game items and even real-life prizes, ranging from legendary Raid champions to an Amazon gift card with a total value of $20,000. This event is for new players, but existing Raid players can join in on the excellent fun, yes, I said excellent, by going to egghunt.plarium.com as well. There you'll find a special promo code that everyone can use to earn a small gift in-game. With all of this exciting stuff and more coming to Raid, if you still haven't had the chance to play the game, well then what are you waiting for? You can use the link in my description or scan my QR code on screen for insane bonuses. We're talking an epic champion Talia from the Sacred Order faction and other useful things such as energy refills, a skill tome, and an XP booster. Once you're in and crushing your enemies, you can find me under the name nerdSlayer. And if you're fast enough, you can even join my clan. So just hit the link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video, and thank you to everybody else for your support. Let's get back to the video. So the story of Unreal starts with the first title, a single-player only game back in 1998. Unreal was the unveiling of the Unreal Engine, and Epic Games' major competitor to Quake, another arena shooter royalty title that launched 2 years prior. Unreal Tournament, the multiplayer version of the series, would go on to become its very own successful series, and boy did they start things off with a bang. While Unreal was a great game and recognized by critics for such, it did feel like a bit of a tech demo due to how fast the game was created. Unreal 2 would be another massive hint, but people would have similar complaints about the single player. But I'm not going to cover that much in this video, but go check out G-Man Lives' content on YouTube. Unreal Tournament was gasoline, and it exploded the world when it launched near the end of the year in 1999. While Quake multiplayer had been unveiled to the world already, Unreal Tournament was different. Now I'm gonna preface something interesting, but obvious to those who know me. I love Quake. It's my favorite arena shooter series, and I personally love the single player the most. That being said, I always had a reverence for Unreal Tournament and how incredible it seemed. So I like Quake more, but actually enjoy the multiplayer in Unreal Tournament more. My PC throughout multiple iterations couldn't run UT, and that's kind of what made Unreal Tournament different. Boasting none other than the Unreal Engine, it was a powerful game that certainly felt that way when you played it. That being said, I do think Unreal Tournament's success was not just a Coke versus Pepsi sort of conversation. Quake was impressive, and I have covered their more recent modern attempt, Quake Champions, on my channel, so go check that out. It's kind of homework for watching this, but Unreal Tournament had the benefit of studying Quake, and then launching later with a better engine that looked, simply speaking, more impressive. While Quake would be known for more duel-centric game modes, Unreal Tournament would have game modes like the iconic Capture the Flag and Domination modes too, playable on over 50 different maps. Sure, some of these were just repurposed single-player maps, but still, that's an incredible amount of content for a launch multiplayer game. Unreal Tournament was still played by single-player fans too, because the game allowed for bot play offline, which sort of became iconic and expected for arena shooters. Unreal Tournament would reign for the next 3 years at least before a sequel title would launch. The ramifications of the success of Unreal Tournament and the Unreal series wouldn't just spearhead the engine of the same name, and the game as well, it would go on to create a legacy that we're still living in today, where Unreal would assert itself as the top gaming engine. I should note that the genius of Unreal Tournament the first can't just be attributed to the game's engine. In fact, visually for the time it actually wasn't that impressive like its parent series. But what was impressive, and still is studied to this day, is the level design of each of the maps. Unreal Tournament really was a masterpiece. Unreal Tournament 2003 might have been the next title in the series, but it's easily the most forgotten. Unreal Tournament 2003 was a hit success. That's even the more funny part, I guess. But as G-Man Lives states in his video concerning 2004, 2003 is forgotten because the content of the games are similar, except 2004 has way more additions and is better packaged. Unreal Tournament 2004 was the Chad version of Unreal Tournament 2003, and just prime packaging what was already great, with more additions with that. 2004 would add the large conflict mode dubbed Onslaught, which was a bizarre in hindsight mode from the perspective of an arena shooter, attempting such at least, and it can feel a bit disjointed within the game, but I personally enjoyed the mode. 2004 would render 2003 essentially obsolete, and assert Unreal Tournament as the arena shooter online. It's Unreal Tournament's arguably best game in the series, and joins the first game as one of the best games of all time. Where Unreal Tournament's time in the sun would come to an unceremonious end following the launch of their fourth game, for some reason dubbed Unreal Tournament 3, and I have literally never understood it. Unreal Tournament would launch November 19th, 2007, which was problematic because Epic would actually rush the launch of Gears of War, another Unreal Engine featured shooter, this time a third-person cover-based one the year prior, to incredible success. Gears of War was another idea and work of the talented game developer Cliff Bleszinski, who was very much the Unreal developer. This was a proverbial passing of the torch, by choice or not, for the franchise to Gears of War, which would now dominate the next decade. But why didn't Unreal Tournament 3 work? Unreal Tournament 3 was a game I played at launch and was able to spot many of the flaws right away. Unreal War, or Gears of Tournament, in a nutshell. The armor and visual style of Unreal Tournament has effectively become another amalgamation of giant Unreal renders prevalent in Gears of War. For starters, U2-3 has less modes, less weapons, and less maps. The single player is also by far the worst in the series, coming from an Unreal and Arena single player fan too. UT3's single player is the lowest effort attempt for the game because it's less engaged than even the previous attempt. To put all of that into context, Unreal Tournament is the multiplayer variant of Unreal. It wasn't really known for single player. The single player was usually just a different amalgamation of bot matches, but whereas in 2004 and UT3, the game was more about playing a series of bot matches to complete the campaign. Similar, but unlike a fighting game, the bot matches in this game and single player were just not very engaging. You just essentially go from screen to screen beating the next bot challenge. And the multiplayer doesn't have the best legacy either, because it was incredibly hard to run on most PCs like my toaster. But also because just watch the gameplay and compare them. UT3 is much slower, clunkier, and looks, simply speaking, worse and more crude in many respects, like in the weapon models. Unlike 2004 and even the first, it didn't age well despite being the much newer title, which should tell you something. UT3 might have been Unreal Tournament's failure, but it still did well critically and sold relatively well considering. But the legacy didn't age well. It was a hard bar to meet coming off of some of the best multiplayer shooters ever, and the fast advancement of technology. But it's important that I told the story, at least in parts, of Unreal Tournament as a series to serve as a foundation for the significance of UT4, and the series as a whole. The start of Unreal Tournament 4 is sort of where our story truly begins. Unreal Tournament 4 was supposed to bring back the sleeping giant franchise that gave the iconic engine its name. Unreal Tournament 4, as it would be dubbed, would enter the fray much later, following the heydays of the Gears of War franchise and the downturning of the arena shooter genre as a whole, save single-player Doom. The big reveal wasn't just for the title period, but the specifications of such. UT4 would be free, as in free and not free to play. The team behind UT4 was a small but dedicated team of veterans at Epic Games, who had no end goal or time set in mind for the game. The game was being called effectively a crowdsourced one, which would involve help from the community to develop the game. This was after Tim Sweeney had denied Epic was working on another Unreal title. Players could access UT4 early by having an Unreal Engine subscription. The announcement, especially for me, was a bit of a wet noodle, because many details were left to the imagination and others were simply not that exciting. Not knowing the end date for the game, that people would need to be invested into heavily due to a high skill cap, and their just overall plan of the game was just perplexing to say the least. In many ways, the announcement of UT4 is where the largest problems already begin. Because while this could have been a moment to drum up true excitement for another UT project, it wasn't exactly that. It wasn't exactly exciting and didn't have fans looking forward to much, because not even the devs were clear with what that was supposed to be yet. But straight up admitting that they had a small but dedicated team wasn't necessarily a bad thing, it just implied more care and effort being put into perfecting the core foundation of the game. The issue would be that most high-level arena shooters that have basically ever had success besides the original UT had more than 16 to 20 developers. Fast forward to games like Gears of War that featured the Unreal Engine, and they had dev teams well over 150 developers. This meant that UT would be chugging, but chugging at a far slower rate and expectation than their competitors. Was this why the game was announced as open source, or was that just an attempt to get the community involved early? Epic would state that modders would have earnings from the marketplace that would be split from the developers and Epic in order to earn revenue from the game, which would help things but again feel more like open source video game recruitment at that point, and I've just never really seen that work to a great effect. Not on the scale of such a project. I think the Epic team had the right spirit and good ideas, but just the execution was quite poor. There would be gameplay shown shortly after the announcement, and while it was interspersed with behind-the-scenes developer footage and the team working on UT4, there was indeed gameplay showcased. It was very rough gameplay, but what looked like the core of what was expected of UT was at least there in foundation. I remember this gameplay showcase in the time that it was released, and we were generally pretty excited as fans upon seeing this video from Epic Games. Even more gameplay was showcased in a video podcast showing off the weapons of the game, such as the pistol, the rocket launcher, the iconic shock rifle, and even more guns, like perhaps the pulse gun and the flak gun. One thing you could pick up from watching the gameplay for sure was that there was a clear desire to make UT4 feel like a classic UT game, while also being faster than UT3. This was being taken largely positively, even with the bare bones footage shown thus far. Following the gameplay reveal, Epic would unlock UT4 for Unreal Engine subscribers, making it playable August 13th, 2014. One of the issues that I had with the early playable version of UT4 was that it didn't have capture the flag immediately, and it didn't really even have a game browser. And when they did get the capture the flag mode, I never felt that they highlighted it that much. Now, I might anger some UT fans here and probably catch a few strays from Quake fans while I'm at it, but I feel strongly about this. Quake is a game about deathmatch and duels. UT is a game about team objective and team killing. Capture the flag, in my opinion, should have been the flagship mode of a game like UT4, which was actually faster than the previous UTs. Ever since titles like Tribes, UT, and Quake had slowed down movement-based tech shooters had sort of died out. In these games, there were multiple ways to run a flag. But although I love Tribes and that's a conversation for another video, UT had really good bones for capturing the flag. And the reason that I'm such a big believer in it is besides just enjoying the game mode period, it's a better game for bringing in casual players than too much focus on deathmatch. Like sure, you offer deathmatch, right? You always do. But with focus on capture the flag, you could have attracted even the Halo audience and other non-typical arena shooter players. Look at what makes Fortnite and the BR so successful. Other mainline shooters weren't doing this novel approach where you dropped without your loot and you had to figure it out as you go. Sure, die-hard shooter fans play Fortnite too, but plenty of the people that play Fortnite never played shooters. But all of this is coming from the guy who liked the Onslaught game mode in the past, so take this with a grain of salt, I guess. Fortnite, yep, it's back, and didn't go anywhere even. While we cover the cooperative player portion of the game on the channel, the BR portion of the game has had colossal successes and changed the very industry. The BR mode specifically was a low-effort attempt at Epic for making something work with the struggling Fortnite game, and the rest is history. 2018, we would see the rise of Fortnite, which would sadly spell the downturn for many other hopeful Epic projects, such as Paragon, which we also covered on the series, and the topic of this video, Unreal Tournament 4. Just as fast as the success for Fortnite came, so went the support for UT4. By that point of development, UT4 was still a small, dedicated team. There was no ramping up of a development that ever came or happened after the announcement in 2014. By 2018, UT4 had some new modes and guns added, but the game was still virtually unknown and not publicly available. There also hadn't been an update since 2017, which is naturally when Fortnite launched. When the Fortnite BR blew up, it put a serious dent in the future and viability according to Epic and UT4. That's because the team behind UT had struck gold experimenting with Fortnite, and the rest was history. They're the ones that made the Battle Royale. The issue I find with using this as the sole reason for the game failing though, which is what a lot of people like to do and will probably do in the comments, is firstly you can't just fully prove that. And second, it acts as if there wasn't problems in the development process and execution of the game altogether. That just wasn't the case, as we will discuss later in the video, but it can't be denied the impact Fortnite had on UT4's chances of success. The UT team created the Fortnite BR, but it was more like the final metaphorical dagger. The UT community would continue to have weekly updates and community events well into November 2018, but the prospect of the game ever leaving alpha and launching was increasingly becoming a lost cause even in the eyes of the community. Things were looking bleak, as Fortnite would only continue to grow in success. Unreal Tournament 4, before even launching, would have its development terminated December 5th, 2018. Tim Sweeney would confirm such with Variety, stating that the game was remaining playable but no more active development was going on with it. Like the Kotaku article would point out, UT4 was announced back in 2014, and yet since then they had very little to show for it. They had been calling the game pre-alpha and super early, years after development started. Once Epic found success with Fortnite, they seemed intent on becoming a one-game studio and neglected their other titles, plural. Epic would shut down Unreal servers December 2022, and most tragically and shocking for Unreal fans, it wasn't just UT4. The online servers for Unreal 2, Unreal Tournament 2003, 2004, 3, and the Game of the Year edition would shut down too. Epic Games would become a villain essentially overnight, as there wasn't even any reported reason for why this had happened. And it seemed like Epic was just not abandoning the UT franchise as they had, they were sabotaging it. The reason I feel so outraged about all of it is because when you look at how id Software was handling Quake, The comparison is just depressing. Quake is playable on basically every platform, and even the damn Nintendo Switch qualifies. This is a proper legacy for a legendary arena shooter to have. Meanwhile, QuakeCon is still ongoing as it has been for 20 plus years. Then you look at Unreal and you're just like, why the difference? It's playable on only a few platforms, and even where it is playable, the online servers were just brought down. With a sliver of hope, UT3 would appear on Steam, a version called Unreal Tournament 3X. This is the cross-platform updated version of UT3. This would at least give Unreal fans a single game to play officially, which was better than nothing. Naturally though, UT3 wasn't really a fan favorite, so it felt like a slight meme to me personally. 3 months would pass and Epic would remain silent about reintroducing UT3X after announcing it on Steam. Just like that, by the time of this video, Epic killed not only their newest ill-fated title from their classic franchise, they killed the legendary franchise itself that built their company and even gave their famous engine its name. Now there's been a slew of things that went wrong with all of this, and I have covered the parts that have affected the game from the outside looking in, as well as the timeline, but let's talk about UT4 itself more specifically and what went wrong, and why it failed to find success or even ultimately launch. Well, let me put it this way. How can an arena shooter with a super high skill floor, meaning you need to be really good to even play the game basically, think they can attract a fan base with basically no advertising and expect the player base to do the heavy developmental lifting? I guess what I'm trying to say is it's already hard to attract players to said game, and you went the extra mile to make it even harder for yourself. If you weren't ready to show off UT4 yet, or have the serious development put into it, then why not just not show it off? Who actually thought that you could build hype for such a specific kind of shooter by ignoring how you build a player base in a shooter anyway? Players expect the shooter to have the core features they need and want, if they're going to dedicate immense amounts of time and resources to learn and play the game. Surviving off of old fans of arena shooters isn't viable in 2020 and beyond anymore. Look at the successes of Doom in their spin-off multiplayer mode. It's because the single-player experiences give you plenty of time to learn the basics of the game. All of the weapons, the movement, and even in some cases the maps. Unreal Tournament having no single-player component further keeps players away from ever trying the game, as well as finding little victories that can inspire them to go to multiplayer in the first place. UT seemingly not learning from those around it, that were contemporaries by the way, was a bit bizarre. But perhaps we should just call it what it is, which is that they put a small but super talented team on UT hoping that they could strike some sort of gold. But they realized that they already had a fully finished and quality game that the industry, from my sources, was quite high about before the BR even hit big. So when the BR portion of Fortnite hit big, it was because of the UT team. So we know that they ultimately had talent. I mean, even play Fortnite in 2023 and it feels basically like an arena shooter with the movement options that are available in the game. It's hard not to feel Unreal's footprint in it. But I also think that not utilizing any of their previous UT titles in some sort of bundled game was just a missed opportunity. They could have made the sales from the other UT games go towards development on UT4 if they wanted some crowdsourced funding and involvement even. But when hype died for UT, there was no reignition of it, and no refocusing or grand plan on what UT was supposed to be doing uniquely in the space. From the outside looking in, UT4 felt like a college project that you hopefully wished would make it big, but was never properly set up for the success in the first place. The music's playing, which means it's time to put this mystery to bed. A skeleton crew was set to revive a behemoth. No leveraging of single player or prior titles. Open source killed the hype. Fortnite's success. Lack of a proper soul. I never thought I would be saying that my preferred multiplayer experience in Unreal Tournament would be taking second candle to Quake after all of these years in that realm, and simply due to UT not showing up to bat. Sure, Quake Champions was a failed game too, but at least the Quake community still has each other and the ability to play multiple games on multiple platforms. Meanwhile, the radio silence on a franchise that essentially gave Epic Games their success, which is tragic really. It's inarguable that because their most successful games not named UT are made with UT's original engine, the legacy, whether they care or not, is set in stone. And yet, UT's legacy seems, according to Epic Games, to have been nothing more than a springboard for their company and its ambitions. Thanks for watching.